Hello everyone and welcome back to Shadow Man Stories. I can picture some of you already in bed, maybe some of you just getting home from work. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, I'm glad you're here. If this helps you relax or sleep, please like and subscribe. It means a lot. Now, let's get you comfortable, and I'll tell you tonight's story. My name is Amy Rodriguez, and I should have known something was wrong the moment I saw the clinic. I'd driven 4 hours into the North Carolina mountains, my GPS losing signal about an hour back, following handwritten directions on actual paper like it was 1995. The clinic sat in a valley so deep the afternoon sun barely touched it, a squat brick building that looked more like an old schoolhouse than a medical facility. Everything around it was green and quiet. Too quiet. No birds singing, no insects buzzing. Just wind moving through pine trees that seemed to lean away from the building. I'm a pediatric nurse, been doing it for 8 years. I took this job because the pay was incredible, almost double my salary in Charlotte, and because I wanted to get away from the city for a while. My divorce had finalized 3 months earlier, and I needed space to think. The listing said, temporary replacement for nurse on medical leave. 3 months in the mountains taking care of kids seemed perfect. I was so stupid. A woman waited on the clinic's front steps. She was maybe 60, with steel gray hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She wore old-fashioned white nursing scrubs, the kind with the little cap my grandmother used to wear. Amy Rodriguez? Her voice was flat, emotionless. That's me. I grabbed my bag from the car. You must be Margaret Stern. Head nurse Stern. She didn't smile. We have protocols here. Specific protocols. You'll follow them exactly. I'd worked with strict nurses before. Every hospital has that one supervisor who runs their floor like a military operation. But something about the way she said protocols made my skin prickle. She led me inside. The clinic was cold. Not just air-conditioned cold, but deep cold, like a cave. The walls were painted that institutional green color that went out of style in the 70s. Everything smelled like bleach and something else, something metallic. We have 12 children currently in residence, Margaret said as we walked down a dim hallway. Most are here for extended treatment of blood disorders. Blood disorders? I asked. All of them? This region has certain genetic factors. She stopped at a heavy metal door. The children are fed at specific times, 7 a.m., noon, 6 p.m., and midnight. Never early, never late. You'll give them their iron supplement with every meal. 4 meals a day, seems. The supplement is prepared specially. You don't need to know what's in it, just give it to them. Every single dose. Missing even one could be dangerous. She opened the door. The room beyond was set up like a small hospital ward. 6 beds on each side. 12 total. Every bed was occupied. Every child looked at me with the same expression. Not curious, not friendly, just watching. They were all pale. Not sick pale or anemic pale. Paper pale. Ghost pale. Their eyes seemed too large for their faces. And in the dim light of the ward, I could swear their pupils reflected light, like a cat's. This is Nurse Rodriguez, Margaret announced. She'll be caring for you while Nurse Patterson is away. None of the children spoke. They just stared. A little girl in the nearest bed, maybe 7 years old, with blonde hair so light it was almost white, tilted her head to look at me. She had a bandage on her neck. What happened to her? I asked quietly. Wild dogs, Margaret said. We get them in the mountains. The children play outside sometimes, and accidents happen. I've seen dog bites. I've treated dozens of them. The bandage on that little girl's neck was in the wrong place. Too high, too neat. Dogs go for arms, for legs, for anything they can reach. They don't bite perfectly aligned spots on the throat. I'd like to see her wound, I said. Make sure it's healing properly. Emet. Later. Margaret's hand clamped on my arm. Her grip was strong, too strong. First, I need to show you the medication storage. She pulled me out of the ward. As the door swung shut, I glanced back. All 12 children had turned their heads in perfect unison to watch me leave. My room was on the second floor, A small space with a bed, a desk, and a window that overlooked the mountains. I tried my phone. No signal. I tried the Wi-Fi. Password protected. I asked Margaret for the password. "We don't give internet access to temporary staff," she said. "It's policy. Too many distractions." "What about emergencies?" "There's a landline in the nursing station. That's all you need." She left me to unpack. I sat on the bed, looking at my phone's useless blank screen, and felt that prickle again. The feeling you get when you're being watched. I turned to the window. A man stood at the tree line about 50 yards away. Just stood there, completely still, staring at the clinic. He was too far away for me to see his face clearly, but I could see enough. He was tall, unnaturally thin, and his skin had that same paper-pale quality as the children. I blinked, and he was gone. Not walked away. Not moved behind a tree. Just gone, like he'd never been there at all. I unpacked with shaking hands, telling myself it was just stress. Just the isolation. Just my imagination working overtime in a creepy old building. At 6 p.m., I reported for my first feeding shift. The iron supplement Margaret gave me looked like blood. I'm not being dramatic. I've drawn blood, handled blood, seen every shade from bright arterial red to dark venous purple. This stuff in the 12 small cups, one for each child, looked exactly like fresh human blood. "What is this really?" I asked Margaret. "Proprietary iron supplement. Very expensive. Very effective." She watched me with those cold eyes. "Give 1 cup to each child. Make sure they drink all of it. Every drop." The children lined up without being told. Perfectly silent. Perfectly organized. The little blonde girl, her name tag said, "Sarah, sit," stepped forward first. "Hi, Sarah," I said, kneeling to her level. "How are you feeling today?" She didn't answer, just opened her mouth. I held up the cup, and she drank it in 3 long swallows. When she finished, she licked her lips carefully, getting every last drop. Her tongue was too long. Not grotesquely long, just longer than it should be. And when she smiled at me, I saw that her canine teeth were sharper than normal. Filed-looking. Pointed. "Next," Margaret said. A boy named Tommy stepped forward. He was maybe 9, with dark hair and that same pale skin. Same 2 large eyes. Same sharp teeth when he drank his supplement and smiled. I got through all 12 children, my hands steadier than I felt. Years of nursing training kept me professional, kept me moving, even as my brain screamed that something was horrifically wrong. After feeding, Margaret showed me the medication logs. Dates going back months. The same 12 children, receiving the same supplement 4 times a day, every single day. No variation, no changes to dosage, no doctor's notes explaining the treatment. "Where's the prescribing physician's information?" I asked. "Dr. Marsh handles all medical decisions. He visits monthly." "Monthly? These kids need daily monitoring for—" "We monitor them." Margaret's voice went hard. "We've been monitoring them for years. Dr. Marsh trusts our judgment." "Years?" The listing said this was a temporary position replacing someone on medical leave. "How long was Nurse Patterson here?" I asked. Margaret's face did something strange. Her mouth tightened, and for just a second, I saw something that might have been fear in her eyes. "Nurse Patterson is no longer your concern. Your concern is following protocols." "Exactly. Do you understand?" I nodded, but I didn't understand. I didn't understand any of this. My first night shift started at 11 p.m. Margins. Arette left me in the nursing station with a stack of paperwork and strict instructions. Do rounds every hour, check vitals, don't engage in conversation with the children unless medically necessary. The clinic felt different at night, colder, the hallways seemed longer, the lights flickered occasionally, throwing strange shadows. I told myself it was just an old building with old wiring. At midnight, I prepared the supplement for the night feeding. Same 12 cups, same blood-looking liquid. I carried them on a tray to the ward. The children were awake. All of them, sitting upright in their beds, silent, waiting. Midnight feeding time. I said, trying to sound cheerful. They lined up. I gave each child their cup, watched them drink, watched them lick their lips, watched their two sharp teeth catch the light. When I gave Tommy his cup, his hand brushed mine. His skin was cool. Not cold exactly, but cooler than human skin should be. And his touch made my arm tingle in a way that felt wrong. "Thank you, Nurse Amy," he said. His voice was soft, polite, and completely flat, like he was reading from a script. "You're welcome, Tommy." "Do you like it here?" he asked. "I just arrived today. Ask me in a few weeks." "You won't last a few weeks." He said it matter-of-factly, the way you'd comment on the weather. "None of them do." "What do you mean?" "Tommy, back to bed." Margaret's voice cracked from the doorway. I hadn't heard her come in. "Now." Tommy walked to his bed without another word. Margaret glared at me. "No conversations. I told you. No conversations." I don't care. Rules are rules for a reason. Break them again, and you'll regret it. She left. I finished the feeding in silence, my heart pounding. At 2 a.m. I did my rounds, checked each child's vitals, all normal, or at least what passed for normal here. Heart rates slightly low, body temperatures slightly cool, but nothing that would trigger immediate medical concern. I was checking Sarah's blood pressure when I heard it. Whispering. Soft, rhythmic whispering in a language I didn't recognize. Not Spanish, not French, not any language I'd ever heard. The sounds were wrong. Too many consonants, too many clicking sounds, like someone was speaking with stones in their mouth. I turned. All the children were asleep, or pretending to be. Their eyes were closed, their breathing even. But the whispering continued, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. I walked between the beds, trying to find the source. The whispering grew louder as I approached Tommy's bed. I leaned closer. His lips were moving. Eyes closed, completely asleep, but his lips were moving, forming those strange words. And as I watched, his mouth opened slightly. His teeth had grown. Not much, maybe half an inch, but they were definitely longer than they'd been at midnight feeding. The canines especially looked like fangs now. I stumbled backward and bumped into another bed, Sarah's. Her eyes snapped open. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "It's not safe for people like you." "What do you mean?" "People who taste good." My blood went cold. "Sarah, that's not... I'm trying to warn you." Her voice was urgent now, almost desperate. "They can smell it on you. Fresh blood, healthy blood. You're like candy to them. To us." "Who's them?" She closed her eyes. "Go away. Don't try to help me. Don't try to help any of us. Just run." I backed out of the ward, my hands shaking so badly I could barely open the door. In the nursing station, I tried the landline. Dead. Completely dead. No dial tone. No static. Nothing. I tried my phone again. Still no signal. I was alone in this clinic with 12 children who drank blood and had growing fangs and spoke in languages that shouldn't exist. I walked to the front door. Locked. I didn't have a key. The back door. Also locked. I was trapped. I spent the rest of the night in the nursing station, watching the ward door, jumping at every sound. When Dawn finally came through the windows, I'd made a decision. I was getting out of here, today. I'd find a key, I'd break a window, I'd walk the 4 hours back to civilization if I had to. But first, I needed to know what I was dealing with. The clinic had a basement. Margaret had mentioned it briefly. That's where they kept the old medical records. She'd said it was off limits, but I didn't care about rules anymore. I found the basement door at 7 a.m., right after the morning feeding. Margaret had gone to her office to do paperwork. I had maybe 20 minutes. The basement door wasn't locked. It should have been. Looking back, I realized they wanted me to go down there. They wanted me to find what I found. The basement stairs creaked under my feet. Each step down took me deeper into that wrong, cold feeling. My phone's flashlight barely cut through the darkness. The light seemed to die just a few feet ahead, like the dark was eating it. The basement was huge, much bigger than the footprint of the clinic above, The walls were old stone, not brick, ancient-looking stone with marks carved into it, symbols I didn't recognize. Medical records lined metal shelves along the walls. I grabbed the nearest box. The label said 1892. 1892. This clinic wasn't even built until the 1950s, according to the sign out front. I opened the box. Patient files, yellowed with age. But the names, some of them were the same. Tommy Brennan, Sarah Whitlock, a dozen others. The same names as the children upstairs. Same names. Same birth dates. Except these files were from 1892. I grabbed another box. 1923. Same names again. Same children. Same bite marks documented in the medical notes. Same treatment. Daily blood supplement required. Box after box. 1947, 1968, 1989, 2003, 2015. The same 12 children over and over for more than 100 years. My hands shook so badly, I dropped a file. Papers scattered across the floor. One of them wasn't a medical record. It was a letter, written in careful cursive handwriting. To whoever finds this, I am Dr. Catherine Mills, and I am the physician, and of record for these patients. I have been their physician for 37 years since 1954. I was brought here, like you, to provide medical care. I stayed because they made me stay. The children are not children. They were children once, over a century ago, but they are something else now. The mountain took them. The families gave them up willingly, sacrificed them to keep the mountain's hunger satisfied. As long as the children feed, the mountain sleeps. As long as the mountain sleeps, the families prosper. Every generation makes the same bargain. I have tried to reverse the process. I have failed. Whoever you are, don't drink anything they give you. Don't let them feed you. The conversion is subtle. By the time you notice, it's too late. Run. Get out. Don't end up like Margaret, who stayed too long and became one of them. Don't end up like me. I'm writing this in 1991. By the time you read it, I'll be long dead. Or worse, still here. Still serving. Unable to leave. Run. The letter wasn't signed. But at the bottom, in shakier handwriting, like it had been added later. I was wrong. I'm not dead. I'm still here. I will always be here. Save yourself. Footsteps on the stairs. I shoved everything back into boxes and moved deeper into the basement, away from the stairs. The flashlight beam found a doorway I hadn't noticed before, just a black opening in the stone wall. The footsteps grew closer. I had no choice. I stepped through the doorway. The passage beyond was natural cave, not built structure. It sloped downward, the walls pressing close on both sides. I could hear water dripping somewhere ahead, and something else. Breathing. Not one person breathing. Many people. Many things. Deep, wet, rattling breaths coming from somewhere in the darkness. I turned off my flashlight and stood perfectly still. My eyes adjusted slowly. There was light ahead. Faint, reddish, light, like embers. I crept toward it, one hand on the wall to guide me. The passage opened into a huge cavern. The red light came from symbols painted on the walls, the same symbols I'd seen in the basement, but these glowed softly. And in the center of the cavern, around a flat stone altar, stood the children, all 12 of them. And they weren't alone. Adults stood with them, tall, pale adults with those same too large eyes and sharp teeth. They were dressed in normal clothes, jeans, t-shirts, dresses, but they stood wrong, like they weren't quite sure how human bodies were supposed to work. On the altar lay something, someone. A man, unconscious or dead. And as I watched, Tommy stepped forward with a small knife. "No," I whispered. Every head turned toward me. I ran. Behind me I heard them coming. Not running. Something worse. That wrong breathing, getting closer. The sound of nails clicking on stone, movement that was too fast, too fluid. I burst back into the basement, grabbed the nearest metal shelf and pulled it down behind me. Records scattered everywhere. The shelf crashed across the doorway. It wouldn't hold them long. I sprinted for the stairs. Margaret stood at the top, blocking my way. "You shouldn't have gone down there," she said. Not angry, just sad. "Now we have to accelerate your treatment." "Treatment?" I backed down a step. "You've been drinking the water since you arrived. In your room, in the nursing station. We put the supplement in all the water here. Didn't you wonder why everything tasted slightly metallic?" My stomach lurched. I'd drunk 2 glasses of water yesterday, another this morning with breakfast. "It's a slow process normally," Margaret continued. "Takes months, but we can speed it up. A few concentrated doses, and you'll be like us. It's not so bad, Amy. You stop feeling hungry, you stop feeling tired, you stop feeling lonely. You just are, forever. Taking care of the children, protecting the mountain. It's peaceful. You're insane. I was like you once." Her voice cracked. "I tried to run. I tried to save them. But there's no saving them. They're not victims. They're the mountain's children now. And soon you'll understand. You'll be grateful." Something grabbed my ankle from below. I looked down. A hand, pale and cold, had reached through the fallen shelves. Long fingers wrapped around my leg, pulling me backward toward the darkness. I kicked hard, felt my shoe connect with something solid. The grip loosened. I bolted up the stairs, shoving past Margaret. She didn't try to stop me, just watched with those sad, ancient eyes. "You can't run forever," she called after me. "There's nowhere to go." I ran through the clinic, hitting every door, all locked. Every window had bars I hadn't noticed before. I was in a cage. The ward. I could barricade myself in the ward, use the children as leverage somehow. I burst through the ward door and stopped. Sarah sat on her bed, awake, watching me. "I told you to run," she said. "I can't. Everything's locked." "I know." She stood up. "They're coming. They're all coming. The families come every 6 months to check on us, to make sure we're still converting properly. They're here now, and they know you found the cave. Sarah, please. Is there another way out?" She walked to the window. The one I'd assumed was barred like all the others. But this window was different, newer, and the bars were loose. "I've been working on this for 3 years," she said. "A little bit every night. I knew someday someone would come who might help us, or at least deserve a chance to escape." "Come with me," I said. "All of you. We can't leave. We're connected to the mountain, too far away and we die, but you can still make it." She pulled at the bars. They came away with a soft scraping sound. "Go. Find help. Real help. Police. FBI. Anyone who'll believe you." The door behind me rattled. They were coming. "What about you?" I asked. "I've been pretending to be one of them for so long I'm not sure how much of me is left." She smiled, and in that moment she looked so young, so human. "But enough is left to do this. Now go." I climbed through the window, dropped 6 feet to the ground, and ran. Behind me, I heard shouting, glass breaking, Margaret's voice screaming orders. I ran into the forest, branches whipping my face, roots trying to trip me. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs felt like rubber, until I couldn't hear pursuit anymore. Then I ran some more. I collapsed against a tree, gasping. My phone still had no signal, but I used it as a flashlight, scanning the darkening forest around me. Something was wrong with the trees. They all leaned inward toward where the clinic must be. And the bark. When I looked closely at the bark, I saw those same symbols carved into every tree. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Marking out territory. This entire valley belonged to the mountain. I heard them then, voices in the darkness, calling my name. "Amy, come back. It's not safe out here. We just want to help you." I moved as quietly as I could, trying to remember which direction I'd come from. But the forest all looked the same. Every direction seemed to lead back toward that cold, wrong feeling. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt strange here. The darkness never got fully dark. There was always that faint red glow from somewhere. like the symbols in the cave. I stumbled into a clearing and found myself facing the clinic again. Impossible. I'd been running away from it. I'd been moving in a straight line. But there it was. Lights on in every window, figures moving inside, and standing on the front steps, waiting for me. Margaret and all 12 children. "The mountain doesn't let go," Margaret said. "Not once you've drunk from it. Not once it's marked you." I felt it then. A pulling sensation, like a hook in my chest, dragging me forward. The same way you feel thirsty or tired. But this was stronger. This was hunger. "Your body is changing," Margaret continued. "You can probably feel it now. He's sensitivity to light. The cold that doesn't bother you anymore. The way smells are sharper, sounds are clearer. And the hunger. Oh, the hunger is the worst part at first." She was right. My gums ached. When I ran my tongue over my teeth, the canines felt sharper. "No," I whispered. "Yes," Sarah said. She stepped forward. "But you don't have to become what they are. I told you. I've been pretending. I've kept my humanity by holding on to one thing, the memory of who I was. Before the mountain took me. Before my family gave me up." "How long ago?" I asked. 1889. I was 7 years old. My parents brought me here during a drought. The mountain demanded a sacrifice, 13 children from 13 families. In exchange, it would bring rain, protect the harvest, keep everyone prosperous." Her voice was bitter. "They tell themselves it's mercy, that we live forever, that we don't suffer. But you do suffer. Every day, every hour. We're prisoners in our own bodies, watching ourselves do things we don't want to do, eating things we don't want to eat." She looked at the other children. Most of them have forgotten. They've been doing this so long they've forgotten they ever had a choice. But I remember. And I've been waiting. For what? For someone strong enough to break the cycle. The adults, the families, emerged from the clinic. I counted 30 of them, pale, wrong, moving in that too fluid way. They surrounded us slowly, cutting off any escape. "The mountain is waking up," Margaret said. "Every century it wakes, demands more children, more blood. But if we give it something else, someone who's half converted, someone who's fought the change, it might sleep longer, deeper. We could have another 100 years of peace. You want to sacrifice me. We need to sacrifice you. Nothing personal, you're just convenient." I looked at Sarah, at the other children, at my own hands, which were starting to look too pale in the moonlight. "What if there's another way?" I asked. "There isn't," Margaret said flatly. "What if we kill it?" I asked. "What if we kill the mountain?" Silence. Then one of the adults laughed, a wet, horrible sound. "You can't kill a mountain," he said, "but you can kill whatever lives inside it." I turned to Sarah. "That's what you've been waiting for, isn't it? Someone crazy enough to try." She smiled, a real smile this time. "The spring, the one in the cave. It's not just water. It's the mountain's blood. What flows through it flows through all of us. If you poison the spring, you poison the connection." "And kill all of you," I said. "We're already dead. We've been dead for over a century. You'd just be finishing the job." "Sarah, no!" Margaret started forward. "Yes!" Sarah's voice rang out strong. "I'm tired, Margaret. Aren't you tired? Don't you remember what it was like to be human, to feel the sun without pain, to eat real food, to age and grow and change and die like you're supposed to?" Margaret's face twisted. For a moment, I saw the real person underneath, the woman who'd been trapped here for decades, maybe longer. The woman who'd given up hope so long ago she'd forgotten what hope felt like. She whispered. "I don't remember anymore." "Then let us help you remember," I said. "Let us end this." The adults rushed forward all at once. Sarah grabbed my hand. "Run!" We ran. But this time, the children ran with us. Not all of them. Some were too far gone, Too much of the mountain's children and not enough human. But 5 of them ran. 5 out of 12 chose humanity over eternity. The adults were faster. They caught Tommy first. I heard him scream, a sound that cut off suddenly. "Don't stop!" Sarah yelled. We crashed through the forest, back toward the clinic, toward the basement, toward the cave. The adults were right behind us, but they were slowing down. Something was happening to them. They were fighting themselves, fighting the mountain's control. Margaret had followed us. She was in the lead, and she wasn't attacking. She was helping, blocking the other adults, buying us time. We reached the basement, down the stairs, through the passage, into the cavern with the glowing symbols. The altar was empty now, but beyond it, carved into the far wall, was a doorway I hadn't seen before. And through that doorway, I could hear running water. "The spring!" Sarah gasped. We ran to it. The spring was small, just a pool of water, maybe 6 feet across, glowing with that same red light. It bubbled up from somewhere deep below, and when I looked into it, I saw movement. Shadows. Things swimming in the depths that were too large to fit in such a small space. "What do we use to poison it?" I asked. Sarah held up her arm. "Us. Our blood is tainted with the mountain's essence. If we give enough of it back willingly, the spring will reject it, poison itself, break the connection. You'll die." "I know," she smiled. "Finally." The other children stepped forward, 4 of them, all looking at me with those 2 large eyes. "We're ready," one of them said, a boy named Lucas. "We've been ready for so long." Margaret appeared in the doorway, blood running down her face. "They're coming. You have minutes at most." I looked at the spring, at the children, at Margaret. "There has to be another way," I said. "There isn't," Sarah replied, "and you know it. You've known since you read Dr. Mills's letter. This is the only way to break a covenant sealed in blood." She was right. I helped them. God forgive me. I helped them. One by one, the children cut their wrists and let their blood flow into the spring. Sarah went last. As her blood touched the water, the red glow flickered, dimmed. From somewhere deep below, the mountain screamed. The mountain didn't just scream, it convulsed. The cavern shook. Rocks fell from the ceiling. The spring's water turned black, then began to boil. The symbols on the walls sparked and died one by one, their light winking out like dying stars. Margaret grabbed my arm. "We need to go, now." "The children, they're gone. They chose this. Honor that choice by surviving." We ran back through the passage as the mountain came apart around us. I could hear the adults behind us, not chasing now, just screaming, howling. Their connection to the mountain was breaking, and it was killing them. The basement stairs collapsed as we reached them. We climbed over rubble, through clouds of dust. The clinic was shaking itself to pieces. Windows shattered, walls cracked. We burst out the front door into the night air. Behind us, the clinic collapsed inward, sucked down into the earth like it was being swallowed. The sound was deafening, not just building falling, but something else, something huge, dying deep underground. Then silence. The forest was quiet, normal quiet, bird sounds quiet. The trees stood straight now. The red glow was gone. Margaret and I stood in the clearing, covered in dust, bleeding from a dozen cuts. "It's over," she whispered. "After all these years, it's over." Then she started to cry. Not sad crying. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. "What happens now?" I asked. "I don't know. I've been bound to this place since 1976, nearly 50 years. I don't even know if I can leave." "Let's find out." We walked together out of the valley. Every step, Margaret expected to feel that pulling sensation, that hook in her chest, dragging her back. But it never came. We reached my car. It started on the first try. 4 hours later, we drove into the nearest town. I went straight to the police station, told them everything. They didn't believe me, of course, but they sent people to investigate. The clinic was gone. Completely gone. Where it had stood was just a depression in the earth, like a sinkhole had opened up. No bodies, no evidence, no proof of anything. Except Margaret. She was proof. Her ID said she was Margaret Stern, born in 1956. She looked 60. She'd been 32 when the mountain took her. And me. My blood tests came back strange. The doctors couldn't explain it. Some kind of mutation, they said, something they'd never seen before. My canine teeth were slightly elongated. My eyes were sensitive to bright light. But I was alive, human, free. I never went back to nursing. Couldn't. Every time I saw a child in a hospital, I thought of Sarah, of Tommy, of Lucas and the others, of the choice they made. Margaret and I stayed in touch. She tried to rebuild her life, but it was hard. How do you explain a 50-year gap? She told people she'd been in a cult. It was close enough to the truth. Sometimes, late at night, I still feel it. A faint pulling sensation, like something is calling me back. The spring is poisoned. The mountain is dead. But sometimes, dead things don't stay dead in the mountains. Last week, I got a call from Margaret. She'd been contacted by someone from the North Carolina Department of Health. They were reopening the investigation into the clinic. They'd found something, medical records, dating back to 1892. 13 new children had been admitted to a facility in a different valley, different mountain, different families making the same old bargain. I'm writing this on my way there now. I know what you're thinking. I'm crazy to go back. After everything I survived, I should run the other way. But those children are waiting. They've been waiting for over 100 years. And this time, I know what I'm walking into. This time, I'm prepared. My name is Amy Rodriguez. I'm a pediatric nurse, and I kill monsters. Even the ones that used to be children. Even the ones that hide inside mountains. My name is Frank Morrison, and I've been selling farm equipment across Virginia and West Virginia for almost 6 years now. It's not glamorous work, but in 1934, you take what you can get. Most days, I drive my old Ford from town to town with catalogs and order forms, trying to convince farmers to buy tractors they can't afford with money they don't have. The drought that summer was the worst anyone had seen. Fields turned to dust. Crops withered before they grew knee-high. But I kept driving, kept knocking on doors, because sitting still meant starving. That's how I ended up in Cutter's Hollow. I'd never heard of the place before I saw it on my territory map. A small valley tucked away in the Appalachian Mountains, about 30 miles from the nearest real town. The logging company that operated there had shut down suddenly back in March, but the map showed maybe 200 residents, 200 potential customers. The road into the valley wound through dense forest for miles. Pine trees pressed close on both sides, their branches blocking out most of the afternoon sun. My horse Pepper didn't like it. She kept tossing her head and pulling at the reins, which wasn't like her at all. "Easy girl," I said, patting her neck. "Just a few more miles." The trees finally opened up, and I got my first look at Cutter's Hollow. Something was wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. The valley was beautiful, a wide bowl of land with a creek running through the middle, mountains rising on all sides. Maybe 40 or 50 houses spread out along the main road. A general store, a church, a schoolhouse. Everything you'd expect in a small mountain community. But it was too quiet. No children playing in yards. No smoke from chimneys even though it was getting toward dinner time. No chickens scratching in the dirt. The houses just sat there, empty and silent. I tied Pepper outside, to the general store, and went inside. A bell jangled above the door. The store was dim and dusty, shelves only half-stocked. A man stood behind the counter, tall and thin, maybe 50 years old, with dark hair going gray at the temples. He looked up when I entered, and his face broke into the biggest smile I'd ever seen. "Welcome," he said, coming around the counter with his hand outstretched. "Welcome to Cutter's Hollow. I'm Abel Cross. We don't get many visitors these days." His grip was strong, but his hand felt cold. Too cold for a warm August afternoon. "Frank Morrison," I said. "I sell farm equipment. Thought I'd stop by and see if anyone needed—" "Oh, you should stay," Abel interrupted. "Please, you should definitely stay. We have a boarding house. Mrs. Kettering keeps it very nice, very comfortable. You'll want to stay at least a few days." The eagerness in his voice made me uncomfortable, like he was trying too hard. "Maybe just one night," I said. "I noticed the town seems pretty empty. The drought hit you folks hard?" Something flickered across Abel's face. Fear, maybe, or sadness. "The logging company left," he said quietly. "Packed up overnight in March. Most folks followed the jobs to other valleys. We're down to about a dozen residents now." "Dozen?" I looked around the empty store. "Out of 200? Give or take." Abel's smile returned, but it looked forced now. "But the ones who stayed are real friendly. You'll see. Come on, I'll walk you over to the boarding house." He practically pushed me out the door. Mrs. Kettering's boarding house was a big white building at the far end of town. A woman maybe 60 years old answered Abel's knock. She had the same desperate eagerness in her eyes that Abel had. "A guest," she said. "Oh my, a real guest. Come in, come in. I'll make dinner. Do you like chicken? I have chicken." "That sounds fine, ma'am," I said. Whilst the boarding house was clean but felt abandoned, dust covered the furniture in the sitting room. The wallpaper was peeling in places. Mrs. Kettering led me upstairs to a small room with a Führerhaus, bed, a dresser, and a window overlooking the main street. "Dinner's at 6, she said. "Please don't leave before then. Please do join us. The other residents will want to meet you." After she left, I stood at the window and looked out at the empty street. The sun was getting lower now, shadows stretching long across the valley. I noticed something odd about the houses nearest to the boarding house. The doors were all open. Not just unlocked, standing wide open like someone had walked out mid-conversation and never came back. I could see inside one house across the street. A table was set for dinner. Plates, cups, silverware. Like the family had been about to eat when they just vanished. Pepper whinnied from the street below, and I felt a chill run down my back despite the August heat. Something was very wrong in Cutter's Hollow. Dinner that night was the strangest meal of my life. 6 people gathered around Mrs. Kettering's dining table, and every single one of them stared at me like I was the most interesting thing they'd ever seen. Besides Abel and Mrs. Kettering, there was a young schoolteacher named Miss Hadley, a farmer named Tom Perkins, a former logger called Big Sam, and a woman who introduced herself simply as Ruth. They all wanted to know everything about me. Where I came from, where I was going, what the world was like outside the valley. "Things are tough all over," I said, pushing chicken around my plate. "Depression's hit everyone hard, but people are getting by." "We're getting by too," Tom Perkins said quickly. Too quickly. "Getting by just fine here." "Even with the logging company gone?" I asked. Everyone stopped eating. The silence was heavy and uncomfortable. "The company left for business reasons," Miss Hadley said carefully. "Nothing to do with the valley itself." "Must have been sudden," I said. "I noticed a lot of houses look like people just walked away midday." "They followed the jobs," Abel said. "That's all. Simple as that." But his hands were shaking as he cut his meat. After dinner, I went outside to check on Pepper. The sun had set, and the valley was dark, darker than it should have been. No lights in windows, no lanterns on porches, just the boarding house glowing like a tiny island in an ocean of black. Pepper was agitated, pulling at her rope and rolling her eyes white. "What's got into you?" I asked, stroking her nose. That's when I heard it, a voice calling from the forest. Frank Morrison." It was faint, distant, but definitely my name. A woman's voice, soft and sad. "Hello?" I called back. No answer, just wind in the trees. "Frank." The voice came again from a different direction now. "Come here, Frank." I pulled out my flashlight and aimed it at the tree line. The beam barely penetrated the darkness. The forest seemed to swallow the light. "Who's there?" "Come find me, Frank. I'm waiting." Against my better judgment, I started walking toward the trees. I don't know why. The voice just seemed to pull at something inside me, making my feet move without my permission. I was maybe 10 yards from the forest when a hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun around, raising the flashlight like a weapon. Abel stood there, breathing hard. "Don't," he said. "Don't go into the woods at night. Someone's calling my name." "No one's out there," Abel said firmly. "Come back inside." I know what you heard." His grip on my shoulder tightened. "Everyone hears it. But you don't go into the woods at night. That's the one rule in Cutter's Hollow. You never, ever go into the woods after dark." Back in my room, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing that voice, faint but persistent, calling my name through the open window. Around midnight, I saw movement on the street below. Big Sam was walking toward the forest. His movements were strange, stiff and jerky, like a puppet on strings. He walked right past the last house and disappeared into the trees without hesitation. I waited for someone to go after him. No one did. In the morning, I went downstairs for breakfast. Everyone was there except Big Sam. "Where's Sam?" I asked. No one would look at me. "He left," Ruth finally said. "Decided to move on." At midnight, "He was restless," Mrs. Kettering said quickly. "Some people are like that." I went outside to get Pepper ready for leaving. That's when I found her. She was lying on her side in the dirt, eyes open and glassy. Dead. There wasn't a mark on her. No blood. No signs of struggle. She was just empty. Like someone had reached inside and scooped out everything that made her alive. "No," I whispered, kneeling beside her. "No, no. No." Abel appeared beside me. "I'm sorry, Frank. Sometimes animals just die." Could have been her heart. "She was healthy yesterday, strong." "The valley is hard on animals," Abel said quietly. "Hard on everything." I looked up at him. "What's really going on here?" He met my eyes, and for a moment I saw pure terror looking back at me. "You should try to leave," he whispered. "Walk out of the valley, before it's too late." "Before what's too late?" But he was already walking away. Without Pepper, I was stranded. The nearest town was 30 miles away through mountain forest. I could walk it, maybe, but it would take 2 days. 2 days of walking through those woods where voices called in the darkness. I decided to stay one more night, figure out what was happening, maybe find a ride out. That afternoon, I explored the abandoned houses. Most were exactly like I'd seen from my window: meals on tables, clothes hanging on lines, tools left in mid-use. Like everyone had simply stopped existing in the middle of their daily lives. In one house, I found a calendar on the wall. March 15th was circled in red ink. Someone had written, "Company leaving. Should we go too?" Below it, in different handwriting, "Something is wrong with the forest." And below that, in jagged, shaking letters, "It's calling us." Miss Hadley found me reading the calendar. "You're curious," she said from the doorway. "That's dangerous here." "What happened in March?" I asked. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Have you ever heard of hungry places, Mr. Morrison? Places that feed?" "No." "The Cherokee who lived here hundreds of years ago knew about them. They had warnings, stories. But we didn't listen to stories." She walked closer, and I saw how pale she was, how thin. "The logging company woke something up, cutting too deep into the mountain, opening caves that should have stayed sealed. And then it started calling." "Calling who?" "Everyone." Miss Hadley's voice was hollow. "All of us. Every night, it calls. And one by one, we go into the forest. We can't help it. The calling gets stronger every day, until you can't resist anymore. That's impossible." "Is it?" She looked at me with empty eyes. "You heard it last night, didn't you? Your name, spoken by someone you knew once, someone you loved, someone you lost." She was right. The voice last night had sounded like my mother, who died when I was 12. "What's in the forest?" I whispered. "Hunger," Miss Hadley said. "Old hunger, patient hunger. It feeds on us, Mr. Morrison. empties us out bit by bit until there's nothing left but a hollow shell walking around, waiting for the final call. She pulled up her sleeve. Her arm was covered in dark bruises that looked like handprints. "I'm already halfway gone," she said. "We all are. The 12 of us left. We're not the ones who stayed. We're the ones who came here after March, looking for work or shelter. And now we can't leave. The calling won't let us." "That's insane." "Is it?" She smiled sadly. "Tell me, Mr. Morrison, when you thought about leaving this morning, what stopped you?" I opened my mouth to answer and realized I couldn't. The idea of walking into those woods filled me with a dread so deep I could barely breathe. "Exactly," Miss Hadley said. "It already has its hooks in you. Give it a few more days and you'll be like us, hollow, empty, just waiting for your turn to walk into the forest and disappear." That night, I barricaded my door and window. It didn't help. The calling started around 10 o'clock, my mother's voice, clear as day, drifting through the walls. "Frankie, baby, come outside. Mama's waiting for you." I pressed my hands over my ears. Didn't matter. The voice was inside my head now. "Don't be afraid, Frankie. It's just me. Come outside and see me. I've missed you so much." My body started moving on its own. I stood up, walked to the door. My hand reached for the doorknob. "No!" I shouted and threw myself backward. I hit the floor hard, biting my tongue. The voice stopped. I lay there breathing hard, tasting blood. My whole body was shaking. Whatever was in that forest, it was strong, and it was getting stronger. Around midnight, I heard footsteps in the hall. Someone walked past my door down the stairs, out of the boarding house. I pressed my face to the window and watched Ruth walk into the forest, stiff and jerky like Big Sam had been. She never looked back. In the morning, 3 people sat at the breakfast table instead of 4. No one mentioned Ruth. I found Abel in the general store, sitting behind the counter with his head in his hands. "How long?" I asked. He looked up. His eyes were red. 3 months. I came here in late May, looking for work. By June, I knew something was wrong. By July, I was hearing the voices. "Why haven't you left?" "Can't." His voice cracked. "I tried. Got maybe 5 miles out of the valley before the calling started. It was so strong I collapsed. Woke up back here at the edge of the forest with no memory of walking back. Whatever this thing is, it doesn't let go once it has you." "What does it want?" "To feed." Abel stood up, walking to the window. Miss Hadley found some old Cherokee rye, tings in the schoolhouse, warnings carved into stones buried under the floorboards. This valley was sacred ground once, a hungry place. The tribe would leave offerings, animals, crops, keep it satisfied. But they always warned, never let it taste human. "The logging company," I said, "opened caves in the mountain, found skeletons down there, hundreds of them. Ancient. The company executives tried to cover it up, keep working. But then the workers started hearing voices, started disappearing. The executives got scared and ran, leaving us behind. Why didn't the government do something?" Abel laughed bitterly. "They did, sent a federal agent to investigate. She's still here." "What?" "Agent Sarah Mills, FBI. She came in April to document what happened. Now she's just another hollow person waiting to be called." He pointed out the window. A woman in a dirty, torn suit sat on the church steps. She was staring at nothing, rocking back and forth slowly. "She fought it longer than most," Abel said. "She's smart, trained to resist. But even she's almost gone now." I walked over to the church. Agent Mills looked up when my shadow fell across her. "New one," she said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. "You're the new one?" "Frank Morrison. Abel said you're FBI." "Was FBI." She pulled out a badge from her jacket, showed it to me. "Before I became food. There has to be a way to stop this. Kill it, maybe. But it's old, strong, and we don't even know what it is. Underground creature? Spirit? Something else?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I documented everything. Interviews, evidence, patterns, sent reports to my office. Know what they did? Classified the valley. Restricted access. They're containing it, not fighting it. Easier to sacrifice a dozen people than admit monsters are real. That's murder. That's government. She stood up slowly, like her bones hurt. I've been fighting the calling for 4 months. I'm tired, Mr. Morrison, so tired. And the calling is so strong now. Sometimes I think it would be easier to just go. Don't, I said, firmly. Don't give up. Why not? She looked at me with hollow eyes. We're all dead anyway. It's just a matter of time. That afternoon, I broke into the old logging camp at the north end of the valley. The buildings were falling apart, but I found the company office intact, files everywhere, scattered like someone left in a hurry. I spent hours reading. The story came together piece by piece. The company had known. They'd found the caves in January, found the skeletons. Their geologist wrote a report warning that the site was archaeologically significant, possibly dangerous. The executives buried the report, kept cutting. In February, the first worker disappeared, then another, then 3 in one night. The executives hired a consulting group to investigate. The report I found made my blood run cold. Entity appears to be bound to the valley by ancient ritual, unable to leave geographic boundaries, requires periodic feeding of human life essence, recommend immediate evacuation and permanent site closure. They knew. They knew, and they kept working anyway because stopping meant losing money. By mid-March, 12 workers were gone. The executives finally ran, but they left everyone else behind. Left us to feed the thing they'd awakened. I was reading by flashlight when I heard footsteps behind me. Miss Hadley stood in the doorway. In the dim light, she looked almost transparent. You found the truth, she said. They murdered you. All of you. They didn't pull the trigger, but yes. She walked closer, and I realized I could see through her. Actually, see through her, like she was made of smoke. I'm going tonight, Mr. Morrison. The calling is too strong now. I wanted to say goodbye to someone who isn't hollow yet. Don't go, I said. We can find a way to fight this. There is a way. She pulled out a piece of paper covered in strange symbols. I translated these from the Cherokee stones. It's a ritual, a summoning. You can call the entity to you, speak with it directly. Why would I want to do that? Because it's intelligent, she said. The Cherokee didn't fight it. They negotiated with it, fed it offerings willingly to keep it satisfied. Maybe you can make a deal. What kind of deal? I don't know. But I'll be dead by morning, and you'll be hollow by the end of the week. What do you have to lose? She pressed the paper into my hands. The ritual requires blood, yours, and it has to be done at midnight, at the entrance to the caves. Miss Hadley. My name is Emma, she said softly. Emma Hadley. I was a teacher in Richmond before the Depression. I had students who loved me, parents who are probably still wondering where I went. I don't want to die forgotten in these woods, Mr. Morrison. Promise me you'll try. Promise me this thing won't just keep killing forever. I promise. She smiled, and for a moment she looked almost solid again. Thank you. She walked out of the logging office, and I knew I'd never see her alive again. I found Abel that evening and told him everything, about the company files, about Miss Hadley's ritual, about my plan to try to communicate with the entity. That's suicide, he said. Maybe, but doing nothing is definitely suicide. He stared at me for a long moment. I'll help you. I'm already mostly hollow anyway. Might as well die doing something useful. Agent Mills was harder to convince, but eventually she agreed to come along. I'm FBI, she said. Or I was. This is still my investigation, even if no one's reading my reports. We gathered what we needed: flashlights, rope, Abel's hunting knife. At 11:30, we started walking to the caves. The forest was alive with voices. My mother called for me. Abel heard his dead brother. Agent Mills heard her partner who'd died in the Low-Soul Turtle. Line of duty years ago. The voices surrounded us, begging us to come deeper into the trees, to leave the path. Keep moving, I said through gritted teeth. Don't listen. The cave entrance was a dark hole in the mountainside, partially hidden by fallen trees and undergrowth. The opening was huge, big enough to drive a truck through. The logging company opened this with dynamite, Abel said. Thought they'd found a shortcut through the mountain. Instead, they found hell. We climbed down into the darkness. The caves were vast. Our flashlights barely touched the walls. The air smelled wrong, sweet and rotten at the same time, like flowers growing on a corpse. There, Agent Mills pointed. The chamber ahead was carved with symbols, the same ones on Miss Hadley's paper. Ancient Cherokee warnings, centuries old. In the center of the chamber was a natural pit, dropping away into darkness so deep our lights couldn't reach the bottom. This is the place, I said. I pulled out the ritual paper and read it carefully. The instructions were simple, almost too simple. Cut my palm. Let the blood drip into the pit. Speak the words of summoning. You sure about this? Abel asked. No, but I'm doing it anyway. I cut my palm with Abel's knife. The pain was sharp and clean. I held my hand over the pit and watched my blood fall into the darkness. Then I spoke the Cherokee words Miss Hadley had written out phonetically. My pronunciation was probably terrible, but I said them loud and clear. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the darkness moved. It was like watching water pour upward. Black shadow rose from the pit, thicker than smoke, more solid than air. It filled the chamber, pressing against us from all sides. The temperature dropped so fast I could see my breath. And then it spoke. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Not sound, but pressure against my eardrums, vibrating through my bones. Why do you summon me, small one? I forced myself to speak. I want to make a deal. Laughter echoed through the chamber, not cruel exactly, more like a parent laughing at a sea. Hild's innocent question. Humans always want deals. You have nothing I want. I have already taken everything. The Cherokee made deals with you, I said. Offerings. You accepted those. The ancient people understood. They brought gifts willingly. They honored the hungry place. The darkness pressed closer. But your kind violated the treaty, dug into my home, spilled blood in sacred spaces. Now I take what I am owed. The logging company did that, not us. We're innocent. There is no innocence, only hunger, only feeding. The voice became almost sad. I am bound here by ancient ritual. Cannot leave, cannot hunt beyond these mountains. I starve in this prison, waiting for fools to wander close. Then I'll bring you food, I said quickly. Animals, livestock, regular offerings like the Cherokee gave you. Just let us go. Let the hollow ones keep their lives. Silence, long and heavy. You would feed me willingly? Yes, if you release everyone. The hollow ones are empty. There is nothing left to release. Then stop, I pleaded. Stop now. No more taking. I'll set up a feeding program. Sheep, cattle, whatever you need. Just don't kill any more. More silence. I could feel the entity considering, weighing options with intelligence older than human civilization. Show me your commitment, small one. How? Give me part of yourself, not life, not death, something between. Become my mediator, my bridge to the world above. Feel my hunger always, but never be consumed. Walk in both worlds. If you accept this, I accept your offering plan. I looked at Abel and Agent Mills. They both nodded slowly. What does it mean? I asked. Being your mediator? You will feel what I feel, know what I know, carry part of my essence within you always. It will change you, age you, mark you, but you will live. And the others? They will recover. Slowly, never fully, but they will live if your offerings sustain me. It was a terrible deal. A piece of my soul in exchange for a few lives, but it was better than nothing. I accept, I said. The darkness rushed at me, screamed. It felt like ice and fire pouring into my veins, into my brain, into my heart. I felt the entity's hunger, centuries of starvation, of waiting, of desperate need. I felt its loneliness, trapped underground by ancient magic it couldn't break. I felt everything. When I came back to myself, I was on the cave floor. Abel and Mills were kneeling beside me. "Frank?" Abel asked. "Are you alive?" "I think so." I sat up slowly. My left hand, the one I'd cut, was marked with symbols now. They glowed faintly in the darkness, pulsing like a heartbeat. "It's done. We have a deal." 3 months later, I'm still in Cutter's Hollow. The valley has changed. People have started moving back, slowly, cautiously. They're people who know the truth. People Agent Mills recruited from other government projects, other supernatural incidents. People who understand what we're doing here. We call it the Cutter's Hollow Research Station now. Officially, it's an agricultural testing facility. Unofficially, it's the first successful human supernatural cooperation site in the United States. I manage the feeding program. Every 3 days, I bring livestock to the cave entrance, sheep mostly, sometimes cattle. The animals walk into the darkness calmly, peacefully. The entity keeps its word. It doesn't hunt beyond what I give it. In return, the Hollow people are slowly healing. Abel can smile now without it looking forced. Tom Perkins has regained enough life to actually farm again. Even Agent Mills has some color back in her face. But they're not the same. None of us are. We all carry marks now, symbols that glow faintly in darkness. We all feel the entity's presence constantly, a whisper at the back of our minds. We're connected to it, and through it, to each other. Sometimes I think we're not fully human anymore. We're something new, something between. Agent Mills got her career back. The FBI officially denies everything, but unofficially, they've made her the head of a new department, supernatural containment and negotiation. She travels around the country now, finding other hungry places, other entities that need mediators. She always brings them back here first, so I can teach them what I learned. How to live with hunger, how to negotiate with the ancient, how to be a bridge between worlds. Last week, a young man arrived from Colorado. He had the same hollow look I must have had 3 months ago. He'd found something in a mine that shouldn't exist. It was calling to him. I showed him my marked hand and said, "I can help you, but the price is high." He looked at the symbols glowing on my skin. "Higher than death?" "Different than death," I said. "Forever different." He took the deal. They always do. Because the truth is, there are hungry places all over the world. Ancient things that woke up when we started digging too deep, cutting too far, building too much. They're starving, angry, desperate. Someone has to feed them. Someone has to negotiate. Someone has to stand between the old world and the new. It might as well be us. I still hear the calling sometimes, late at night when I'm alone. My mother's voice drifting up from the caves. But it's different now. Not a lure, not a trap. More like conversation. "Hello, Frankie," she says. Not really her. The entity wearing her voice like a coat, but gentle, almost kind. "Hello," I say back. And deep in the mountain, the ancient hunger purrs like a satisfied cat. For now, at least, we're both fed. My name is Jack McKenna, and I've been a revenue agent for 8 years. That means I hunt moonshiners, people making illegal liquor in the backwoods. It's not glamorous work. Mostly, I hike through mountains, follow tips from angry neighbors, and bust up rusty stills. The worst part? Getting shot at by folks who think their grandpappy's recipe is worth dying for. Kentucky in 1962 was still wild country. These mountains held secrets, and people here didn't trust outsiders. Can't say I blamed them. The Crowley family had been making moonshine for generations. Everyone knew it. The problem was, nobody could prove it. 3 agents before me had gone into those mountains looking for their operation. None of them came back. The official story was they'd quit or transferred. I didn't believe that for a second. My boss, Henderson, called me into his office on a Tuesday. "You're going undercover," he said, sliding a file across his desk. "The Crowley operation. We need evidence." "What happened to the other guys?" Henderson's jaw tightened. "They failed. You won't." Something in his voice didn't sit right, like he was reading from a script. But I took the assignment anyway. Maybe I was stupid. Maybe I was ambitious. Probably both. I grew a beard, let my hair get shaggy, and bought clothes from a thrift store. My cover story was simple. I was a drifter looking for work, running from some trouble down in Tennessee. Nothing too specific. Lies work best when you keep them simple. The town of Harlan was my starting point. I spent a week there, drinking in the local bar, letting people get used to my face. I asked around about work, careful not to seem too interested in any one thing. On my 6th night, an old man named Horace leaned close while I was nursing a beer. "You seem like you can keep your mouth shut," he said quietly. "I mind my own business. Crowley family is looking for help, good pay, hard work. You interested?" My heart jumped, but I kept my face neutral. "Where do I find them?" He gave me directions to a place 15 miles up into the mountains. "Don't go looking if you're the curious type," he warned. "Crowleys don't like questions." 2 days later, I was hiking up a narrow mountain trail with my duffel bag on my shoulder. The forest felt wrong somehow. Too quiet. Birds should have been singing, but I heard nothing except my own footsteps. The Crowley compound sat in a clearing surrounded by thick woods. 3 buildings, a main house, a barn, and what looked like a workshop with smoke rising from a chimney. A man stood on the porch of the main house, watching me approach. He was maybe 60, lean and hard, with gray hair pulled back in a ponytail. "You lost?" His voice was rough, like gravel. "Horace sent me. Said you might have work." The man studied me for a long moment. His eyes were pale blue, almost colorless. "I'm Silas Crowley. You got a name?" "Jack." "Jack what?" "Just Jack is fine." Something that might have been a smile touched his lips. "Fair enough. What kind of work you done before?" "Farm work mostly. Some factory time. Whatever pays." "You ever make liquor?" I shook my head. "No, sir." "Good. Means I don't have to teach you wrong." He gestured toward the workshop. "Come on. I'll show you what we do." Inside, the workshop was a maze of copper tubes, barrels, and bubbling vats. The smell hit me immediately, sweet and sharp, like fermented fruit mixed with something else I couldn't identify. 2 men worked at different stations. One was younger, maybe 30, with Silas's same lean build. The other was older, heavier, with arms like tree trunks. "My sons," Silas said. "Clayton and Virgil." Clayton, the younger one, barely glanced at me. Virgil gave me a long, measuring look that made my skin crawl. "We make the best. At Moonshine in Kentucky," Silas said, pride clear in his voice. "Been doing it for 200 years. My great-great-great-grandfather started this operation, and we've never stopped." Nodded, trying to look impressed, but not too interested. "The work is simple," Silas continued. "You haul wood, tend the fires, move barrels. You don't ask questions, you don't talk about what you see here, and you don't touch the recipe. Do that, and we'll pay you well. Understood?" "Yes, sir." "Good. Clayton will show you where you're sleeping. Work starts at dawn." The first week was hard labor. I hauled firewood until my back screamed, kept fires burning at exact temperatures, and moved heavy barrels from one building to another. The Crowleys watched me constantly, testing to see if I'd slack off or snoop around. I didn't. Not yet. Mary Beth, Clayton's wife, brought me lunch on my 3rd day. She was younger than Clayton, maybe 25, with dark hair and nervous eyes. She handed me a sandwich without meeting my gaze. "Thank you," I said. She nodded and turned to leave. "Must be lonely up here," I said, trying to make conversation. She stopped, glanced back at the main house, then looked at me. "You get used to it." Her voice was barely a whisper. Then she hurried away. Something about her scared expression stuck with me. At night, I slept in a small room in the barn. The walls were thin, and I could hear everything. Animals moving in the dark, wind in the trees, and sometimes stranger sounds. Howling that didn't sound quite like wolves, footsteps that seemed too heavy. On my 8th night, I woke to screaming. I grabbed my boots and ran outside. The screaming came from the woods, high-pitched and terrified. It cut off suddenly, replaced by a wet, tearing sound that made my stomach turn. Lights came on in the main house. Silas and his sons emerged, moving fast toward the tree line. I started to follow, but Silas turned and pointed at me. "Stay there." I froze. They disappeared into the darkness. I stood in the yard for 20 minutes, heart pounding, waiting. Whoa! And they came back. Their clothes were dirty and torn. Clayton had blood on his shirt. They walked past me without a word and went inside. The next morning, I asked Virgil what happened. "Coyotes got into our chickens," he said flatly. "Happens sometimes." But I hadn't heard chickens. I'd heard a person. I started paying closer attention after that. The moonshine operation was busy during the day. But at night, weird things happened. The family only did certain work during the new moon, special batches they kept separate from the regular stuff. They added ingredients I didn't recognize, plants they grew in a garden behind the workshop, and the customers. I saw them coming and going, usually at night. They'd arrive looking normal, buy their jugs of moonshine, and leave. But there was something off about them, the way they moved, the way their eyes caught the light. I managed to sneak a sample of the special moonshine and hid it in my room. If I could get it analyzed, maybe that would be enough evidence. 2 weeks in, a man named Pike came to buy moonshine. He was huge, 6'5" at least, with scarred knuckles and a mean smile. He and Clayton talked while I moved barrels nearby. "You hear about Johnson?" Pike asked. "What about him?" "Lost control last full moon. Tore up 3 cows before Silas put him down." Clayton glanced at me, then lowered his voice. "We don't talk about that here." "Why not? New guy doesn't know?" "He doesn't need to know." Pike laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "You better hope he don't find out the hard way." That night I wrote everything down in a small notebook I kept hidden in my boot. The strange customers, the weird ingredients, the nighttime activities, the screaming I'd heard. I was building a case piece by piece, but I was also getting nervous. The Crowleys were watching me more closely. Virgil especially seemed suspicious. Oz following me with his eyes whenever we were in the same room. On the night of the new moon, they told me to stay in my room. "Don't come out until morning," Silas said. "No matter what. You hear?" I agreed, but of course I didn't listen. Once the compound went quiet, I snuck out and crept toward the workshop. Through the window, I could see all 3 Crowley men working by lantern light. They were mixing a batch of the special moonshine, adding the strange plants, chanting something in a language I didn't recognize. Then Clayton drank from a cup. I watched in horror as his body began to change. His bones cracked and shifted, hair sprouted from his skin. His face pushed forward into a snout. In less than a minute, Clayton Crowley had transformed into something that was half man, half wolf. I stumbled backward, my mind refusing to accept what I'd seen. This wasn't possible. It couldn't be real. Clayton's wolf head turned toward the window. His yellow eyes locked onto mine. I ran. I made it back to my room and barricaded the door with my bed. My hands shook so badly I could barely think. Werewolves. The Crowley family were werewolves, and I was trapped on their property 15 miles from the nearest town. I waited for them to break down the door and kill me. But nothing happened. The night passed quietly. When dawn came, I heard the normal sounds of the compound waking up. A knock on my door made me jump. "Jack, you up?" It was Silas's voice, calm and normal. I moved the bed and opened the door slowly. Silas stood there with a cup of coffee, looking exactly like a regular old man. "Rough night?" he asked. I heard noises. "Told you to stay inside." He handed me the coffee. "Come on, work to do." I followed him out in a daze. Everything looked normal. Clayton was working at the still, completely human. Virgil was chopping wood. Mary Beth was hanging laundry. Had I imagined it? Was I losing my mind? No. I knew what I'd seen. I went through the motions of work, trying to figure out what to do. I needed to get out of here. But if I ran, they'd know. I'd seen something. And from what Pike had said, they killed people who knew too much. That afternoon, Mary Beth approached me while I was alone behind the barn. "You saw," she whispered. It wasn't a question. I didn't answer. They know. Silas always knows. She looked terrified. "He's going to tell you tonight, the truth, and then you'll have to choose." "Choose what?" "To join us or die." She hurried away before I could ask more. That night, Silas called me into the main house. The whole family sat around the kitchen table: Silas, Clayton, Virgil, and Mary Beth. They all watched me as I entered. "Sit down, Jack," Silas said. I sat, every muscle tense, ready to fight or run. "You saw Clayton change last night," Silas said calmly. "I could smell your fear through the window. There was no point denying it. What are you?" "We're werewolves. Have been for 200 years. A Cherokee shaman cursed my ancestor for stealing land. The curse passes through blood. We change during the full moon, whether we want to or not. And the moonshine? Controls it. Lets us change when we need to, keeps us human when we don't. Without it, we'd be animals." He leaned forward. 3 federal agents came here before you, Jack. We know you're one too." My blood ran cold. The first 2 ran when they learned the truth. We couldn't let them spread the word. The third, Silas shook his head. He tried to kill us with silver bullets. Didn't work out well for him. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because we're going to give you a choice. Join us, become one of us, or die. Simple as that." "You're insane," Clayton laughed. "We're honest. More than you've been." "I'm not a monster," I said. Mary Beth spoke up, her voice soft. "Neither are we. We use our gifts to protect people in these mountains. We hunt things worse than us. We keep order where the law can't reach." "That's murder." "Sometimes," Silas admitted. "But sometimes that's what's needed. You've been a lawman long enough to know there are bad things in this world that badges and courts can't stop." I wanted to argue, but part of me understood. I'd seen enough evil in my years as an agent to know he wasn't completely wrong. "I need time to think," I said. "You have until tomorrow night," Silas said. "Then you decide. But Jack, if you try to run, we'll know, and we'll catch you." Back in my room, I tried to think clearly. My agency had sent me here knowing what the Crowleys were. That's why they'd sent 3 agents before me. They wanted a live specimen. Henderson had basically sent those other agents to their deaths. And now me. I could try to escape, but they'd catch me. I could try to fight, but what chance did I have against werewolves? Or I could join them, become a monster myself. None of the options were good. The next morning, everything changed. A truck pulled into the compound and 5 men got out. They were armed, and they looked mean. The leader was a tall, thin man with a scar running down his face. "Silas Crowley," he called out. "We need to talk." Silas emerged from the workshop, his sons flanking him. "Hatcher, you're not welcome here." So these were the rival moonshiners Pike had mentioned, the Hatcher family. "That's too bad," Hatcher said, smiling. "'Cause we're moving into this territory. Your operation is done. Try it and see what happens." Hatcher's smile widened. "Oh, we know what happens. We know what you are. And we've come prepared." He pulled out a silver knife. The compound exploded into violence. Clayton and Virgil began changing even in daylight, their bodies twisting. The Hatcher men opened fire, but not with regular bullets. With silver. Virgil went down screaming, a silver bullet in his chest. Clayton charged forward, already half-transformed, and tore into one of the Hatchers. I stood frozen, not knowing which side to help. Then I saw Mary Beth. She'd started to change too, but a Hatcher was aiming right at her. I didn't think. I just moved. And I tackled the man from behind, and we both went down. His gun fired, the bullet going wild. He spun and punched me hard in the jaw. Stars exploded in my vision. Then Mary Beth, fully transformed, grabbed the man and threw him 20 feet into a tree. The sound his body made when it hit was sickening. The fight lasted maybe 3 minutes. When it was over, 2 Hatchers were dead, 2 had fled, and Hatcher himself was on his knees with Clayton's claws at his throat. "Who told you?" Silas demanded. "Who told you what we are?" Hatcher spat blood. "Your federal friend, Henderson. He's been selling information to anyone who'll pay." My heart sank. My own boss had betrayed us all. Silas nodded to Clayton, who ended Hatcher's life quickly. Then Silas turned to me. "You saved Mary Beth. You chose your side, Jack. Now there's no going back." He was right. I'd attacked federal informants. I'd helped werewolves kill humans. Even if the Hatchers were criminals, I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. "What do we do about Henderson?" I asked. "First, we take care of Virgil," Silas said sadly. His son was still alive but fading fast. Then we deal with the traitors. Virgil died that night despite everything we tried. Silver poisoning had spread too far through his blood. I helped bury him in the family plot behind the house while Silas said words in Cherokee. After the funeral, we sat in the kitchen and planned our next move. "Henderson sold us out," I said. "He's probably already contacted more Hatchers, more hunters. They'll come with silver and fire." "Then we go to him first," Clayton said, his eyes still red from crying. "End this." "It's not that simple," I argued. "Henderson's just one link. The agency is studying you. They want to capture you, learn how the transformation works. If we kill Henderson, they'll just send someone else." "So what do you suggest?" Silas asked. "We fake your deaths, burn this place down, leave evidence that you all died in a fire, then you relocate somewhere they can't find you. And leave behind 200 years of history." Silas shook his head. "No. This is our land." "Then you'll die defending it," Mary Beth spoke up. "What if we did both? Fake our deaths, but stay here, hidden." "How?" She looked at me with those dark, intense eyes. "You become one of us. Officially. Henderson knows Jack McKenna came here. Jack McKenna can die with us. But you can be reborn as something new." My mouth went dry. "You want to bite me?" "The full moon is in 3 days," Silas said quietly. "If you're willing, we can perform the ritual. You'll transform for the first time under the full moon. Then we stage the fire, kill some of the remaining Hatchers, and plant their bodies here. Federal investigators will think we all died fighting each other. And after? We rebuild, quietly. You use your federal knowledge to keep them off our trail. We use our abilities to protect these mountains, together." I looked around the table. Silas, old and tired but still strong. Clayton, grieving his brother. Mary Beth, watching me with hope and fear. I thought about my life before. The lonely hotel rooms, the corrupt boss, the endless cases that never really solved anything. "If I do this," I said slowly, "we do things my way sometimes. No unnecessary killing. We protect people, like Mary Beth said. We're not just monsters hiding in the woods." "Agreed," Silas said. I took a deep breath. "Then do it. But not yet. First we set the trap for Henderson and the Hatchers. Then after it's done, I'll take the bite." Over the next 2 days, we prepared. I called Henderson from a payphone in town and told him the Crowleys were vulnerable. I gave him detailed information about the compound, the layout, where everyone slept. I told him to bring the Hatchers, that we could take the Crowleys together. Henderson believed every word. Why wouldn't he? I was his loyal agent. We rigged the compound with traps, pitfalls covered with leaves, tripwires connected to bells, hidden weapons stashed around the property. And we waited. They came on the 3rd night. Henderson, 6 more Hatchers, and 2 other federal agents I didn't recognize. They crept up the mountain in the dark, armed with silver bullets and shotguns. The Crowleys were ready. Silas had drunk the special moonshine and transformed hours before. He waited in the woods with Clayton, both in wolf form. Mary Beth stayed human, acting as bait in the main house. I hid near the workshop with a rifle and night vision goggles I'd stolen from my federal gear. Henderson led the group into the compound. Through my goggles, I watched him point at different buildings, directing his people. He was smiling. He thought he'd won. The first hatcher fell into a pit trap and screamed. That was the signal. Silas and Clayton burst from the trees, moving faster than any animal I'd ever seen. They were on the hatchers before the men could aim their guns. Blood and screams filled the air. Henderson saw me and raised his weapon. "Jack, what are you—" I shot him. Not to kill, just in the leg. He went down cursing. The battle was brutal and quick. The hatchers and the 2 federal agents didn't stand a chance against 2 werewolves who knew the terrain. When it was over, 9 men lay dead or dying. Henderson clutched his bleeding leg and glared at me. "You traitor, you'll hang for this." "No," I said quietly. "You sold out your own agents. You got 3 men killed for money. You made deals with criminals. Who's the traitor?" "It doesn't matter," he gasped. "They'll figure it out. They'll come for you all." "Maybe. But they won't find us." Clayton, still in wolf form, approached Henderson. For a moment, I thought he'd kill him, but Silas, transforming back to human, stopped him. "Let him go," Silas said. "What?" Clayton snarled, his voice distorted. "Let him run. Let him—" "Tell them we're all dead. He's the perfect witness." Silas looked at me. "Jack, shoot Mary Beth. Just a graze, nothing serious. We need her blood at the scene." I understood. We needed to sell the story. Mary Beth bravely stood still while I shot her in the arm. She cried out but didn't flinch. Her blood spattered the porch. Then we set the fires. The workshop first, then the barn. The buildings burned fast, the flames lighting up the night sky. We dragged the dead hatchers into the buildings. Let the fire destroy them. I put my federal badge on one of the bodies. Jack McKenna died in that fire. Henderson watched it all, bleeding and broken. "You're monsters," he whispered. "Yeah," I said, "but at least we're honest about it." We let him stumble down the mountain, leaving a blood trail. He'd tell his story. Federal investigators would come, find the bodies, find the evidence of a shootout. They'd conclude the Crowleys and their enemies had killed each other. Case closed. By the time dawn came, we were miles away, hidden in a cave system Silas knew about. We'd stay there until the investigation was over. "You ready?" Silas asked me. The full moon would rise tonight, my last night as fully human. "I'm ready." Mary Beth took my hand. "It's going to hurt. A lot. But you'll survive. We'll be right there with you." As the sun set, she bit me. Her teeth sank into my shoulder, and liquid fire poured through my veins. I screamed, and the transformation began. The first change was worse than dying. Every bone in my body broke and reformed. My skin split and healed and split again. My mind fractured, human thoughts mixing with animal instincts. I heard myself screaming, then howling, then something in between. When it was over, I stood on 4 legs in the cave, my new senses overwhelming. I could smell everything: the damp stone, the lingering smoke from the compound, the blood of my new family. I could hear the heartbeats of small animals in the walls. I could see in the dark as if it were day, and I felt strong, powerful, free. Silas, Clayton, and Mary Beth surrounded me in their wolf forms, guiding me, teaching me to control the beast. We ran through the mountains that night, hunting, learning the territory, marking it as ours. By morning, I was human again. Naked, exhausted, covered in scratches I didn't remember getting. But alive. "How do you feel?" Mary Beth asked, draping a blanket over my shoulders. "Different. Good. Scared. That's normal." Over the next 3 months, we laid low while federal investigators swarmed the compound. They found exactly what we wanted them to find: bodies, evidence of a massive shootout, Traces of the moonshine operation. Henderson's report matched the evidence perfectly. The case was closed. The Crowley family was officially dead. Jack McKenna had died a hero, trying to bust the operation. We watched from a distance as they bulldozed what was left of the buildings and sealed off the property. Then we returned. We built new structures deeper in the woods, hidden by the trees and the mountain terrain. We restarted the moonshine operation, but smaller, quieter, selling only to trusted customers. I used my federal knowledge to set up false trails, fake identities, and information dead ends. Any investigation that came close to the truth, I quietly redirected. I became the spider in the web, seeing threats before they arrived. Mary Beth and I grew closer. 2 months after my transformation, we married in a small ceremony on the mountain, with Silas officiating. She taught me to embrace both sides of my nature, the human cleverness and the wolf strength. Clayton remained more distant, still grieving Virgil, but he respected me, and we worked well together. We discovered other supernatural families in Appalachia, a family of healers who used old magic, a group of psychics who could see the future, a clan of hunters who specialized in tracking real monsters, things worse than werewolves. We built a bun network, a community of people protecting the mountains from threats both mundane and supernatural. The moonshine became our cover and our tool. We used it to help new werewolves control their changes. We sold it to those who needed its special properties, and yes, sometimes we used it to make regular moonshine too. Old habits die hard. Years passed. I learned to live as both man and wolf, switching between forms as needed. I had children with Mary Beth, 2 daughters who inherited the family gift. I taught them everything I knew about surviving in a world that would kill them if it knew the truth. Silas grew old and eventually passed away peacefully in his sleep. We buried him next to Virgil and said the Cherokee words he'd taught us. Clayton took over as patriarch with me as his second. I never saw Henderson again. I heard through my old contacts that he'd been quietly fired from the agency, his career destroyed. He died 10 years later, bitter and alone. Sometimes, late at night, I think about my old life, the man I used to be. Jack McKenna, the revenue agent who believed in black and white, law and order. That man is dead. In his place is someone new, someone who understands that the world is bigger and stranger than any law can contain. Someone who protects these mountains not with a badge, but with claws and teeth. I am the guardian of secrets, the keeper of balance, the wolf in man's clothing. And I have never been more alive. But still, on quiet nights when the moon is dark, I sometimes hear things in the mountains. Footsteps that are too heavy, howls that sound wrong, reminders that werewolves aren't the only monsters in these woods. Whatever they are, we'll be ready. That's what we do. That's what we've always done. The moonshine still flows. The family still protects. The mountains keep their secrets. And I wouldn't have it any other way. My name is Elena Vasquez, and I'm a botanist. That means I study plants for a living. I know that doesn't sound exciting to most people, but I love it. There's something beautiful about understanding how a seed becomes a tree, how roots talk to each other underground, how everything green is connected. That's why I jumped at the chance to study the kudzu problem in Greenbrier, Tennessee. Kudzu is this vine from Japan that someone brought to America about 100 years ago. It grows fast, like really fast, a foot a day in summer. It covers everything, trees, houses, cars, whatever doesn't move. People call it the vine that ate the South. But the kudzu in Greenbrier was different. It was growing 3 times faster than normal, and it had swallowed almost the entire town. I drove into Greenbrier on a Tuesday morning in July. The heat hit me like a wall when I got out of my car. The air smelled green and sweet, kind of like fresh-cut grass mixed with something else I couldn't name, something that made my stomach feel weird. The town looked dead. Most of the buildings were buried under thick layers of green vines. They poured over rooftops, wrapped around streetlights, covered windows like curtains. Only a few structures still poked out: the gas station, part of the church, and the old Greenbrier Grand Hotel at the top of the hill. That hotel is where I planned to set up my research station. It was huge and fancy once, back when rich people came here for vacations. Now half of it was buried in kudzu, but the other half looked okay. Good enough for me to sleep in and store my equipment. I saw only 3 people on my drive through town. They all stared at me with hard faces. Nobody waved. Nobody smiled. One old man actually shook his head slowly, like I was doing something really stupid. At the gas station, I stopped to buy water and ask questions. The woman behind the counter was maybe 60, with gray hair and tired eyes. "You here to study the kudzu?" she asked before I could say anything. "Yes, ma'am. I'm Dr. Vasquez. I'm a botanist from the university." "I know what a botanist is," she cut me off. "And I'm telling you what I told the last 3 scientists who came through here. Leave it alone. Just leave it alone and go home." "I'm just taking samples and measurements," I said. "I want to understand why it's growing so fast here." She handed me my change without looking at me. "Some things don't want to be understood. Some things just want to be left in peace." "Has anyone gotten hurt by the kudzu?" I asked. Her face went pale. "Just go to your hotel. Stay on the roads. Don't go into the green. And whatever you do, don't go out at night." I wanted to ask more questions, but she turned her back on me and walked into the storage room. That should have been my first clue. That cold feeling in my stomach should have made me listen. But I'm a scientist. I don't believe in superstitions or small-town ghost stories. I believe in data and evidence and the scientific method. I drove up the hill to the Greenbrier Grand Hotel as the sun started to set. The building looked sad and beautiful at the same time. The front half was still white and clean, with tall columns and big windows. The back half had disappeared under a mountain of kudzu that seemed to pulse and shift in the evening breeze. I carried my equipment inside: laptops, sensors, sample kits, cameras. The lobby was dusty, but mostly intact. I set up my computers on the old front desk and put my sleeping bag in one of the ground floor rooms that still had a door. By the time I finished, it was dark outside. I made a simple dinner and ate it while looking at satellite images of the town on my laptop. The kudzu coverage had increased by 30% in just the last year. That shouldn't be possible. Kudzu grows fast, but not that fast. And the pattern was weird. It spread out from the hotel in an almost perfect circle, like ripples in a pond. I was staring at the screen when I heard it for the first time. A scraping sound, slow and steady, like something dragging across the wall outside my room. I told myself it was just the vines moving in the wind. Plants don't make noise on their own. That's basic biology. But when I looked out the window, there was no wind. The night air was completely still, and the kudzu on the back half of the hotel was moving anyway. I didn't sleep well that first night. Every time I started to drift off, I'd hear that scraping sound again, or a rustling, or something that sounded almost like breathing. In the morning, I told myself I was being stupid. I was in a creaky old building surrounded by plants. Of course there were weird noises. That's just what old places sound like. I spent the morning setting up sensors in the kudzu. I put them in different spots around the hotel, some in the thick parts of the vine coverage, some in the thinner areas, some right at the edge where the kudzu met normal grass. The sensors would measure growth rate, temperature, moisture, and electromagnetic activity. That last one was just a hunch. Sometimes plants give off tiny electrical signals when they're stressed or damaged. I wanted to see if this kudzu was doing anything unusual. By noon, I was hot and tired and covered in little scratches from the vines. Kudzu has these tiny thorns that most people don't notice, but after hours of pushing through it, my arms looked like I'd fought with a cat. I ate lunch in the hotel lobby and checked my laptop. The sensors were already sending data, and what I saw made me sit up straight. The kudzu was giving off electromagnetic pulses, not random ones, patterns. Regular patterns that repeated every few minutes, like a heartbeat but more complex, like a rhythm, like music almost. That was impossible. Plants don't do that. They can't do that. They don't have nervous systems or brain, ends or anything that could create patterns like this. I checked my equipment 3 times to make sure it wasn't broken. It wasn't. The readings were real. I was so focused on my computer that I didn't notice the old man standing in the doorway until he spoke. "You're picking up the signals." I jumped and almost knocked my laptop off the desk. "Jesus, you scared me." He was the same man I'd seen shaking his head at me yesterday. He was black, maybe 75 or 80, with white hair and dark eyes that looked way too sharp for his age. He walked with a cane, but his back was straight. "Name's Moses," he said. "Moses Reed. I live down the hill, one of the last folks who didn't leave when the green came." "Dr. Elena Vasquez," I said. "How did you know about the signals?" "Because I knew the man who made them." He walked closer and looked at my laptop screen. "Dr. Blackwood. He came here 50 years ago with big ideas about fixing the world's food problems. Said he could make plants grow anywhere, feed everyone, end hunger." "What happened?" Moses's face went hard. "He made a deal with something he shouldn't have. Used himself in his own experiment. And now he's part of the green. Has been for 50 years. And the green keeps growing, keeps reaching, keeps looking for more." I wanted to laugh. I wanted to tell him that was impossible, that people don't become plants, that science doesn't work that way. But something in his eyes stopped me. "Where was his laboratory?" I asked instead. "Basement of this hotel. He rented it from the owners before everything went bad. I was his assistant for the first month before I saw what he was really doing and quit. He's still down there, Dr. Vasquez, still in the green, still conscious, and he knows you're here." Moses turned and walked toward the door. He stopped at the threshold and looked back at me. "Don't go out at night. And don't go into the basement. Some doors are locked for a reason." Then he left. I sat there for a long time, staring at my laptop. The pulses kept coming, regular as clockwork. Like a heartbeat, like a signal, like a voice trying to speak. I'm a scientist. I don't believe in ghost stories. But I do believe in evidence, and the evidence was telling me something really strange was happening here. That evening, as the sun set, I watched the kudzu through the window. In the fading light, it looked almost like it was breathing. The leaves moved in patterns that didn't match the wind. Vines shifted and curled like fingers stretching after a long sleep. I set up a camera to record the kudzu overnight. Time-lapse photography would show me if it was really moving on its own, or if I was just seeing things. At midnight, I was still awake, staring at my laptop and trying to make sense of the data, when the scraping sound came again. Louder this time. Closer. I grabbed my flashlight and walked to the window. The kudzu was moving, not swaying, moving, growing, reaching. Vines were crawling up the window, spreading across the glass like fingers, blocking out the moonlight inch by inch. I watched, frozen, as the vine tips found the tiny gap where the window didn't quite close all the way. They pushed through, thin as thread at first, then thicker, questing into my room like blind snakes looking for prey. I ran to the window and yanked it shut, crushing the vine tips. They jerked back, and I swear I heard something. Not a sound exactly, but a feeling. Like surprise, like pain, like anger. The kudzu outside the window pulled back, and for just a second, I saw something in the mass of vines. A shape, almost human, watching me. Then it was gone, and there was just kudzu again. Just plants. Just green. I pushed my desk against the window and didn't sleep at all that night. In the morning, I checked my time-lapse camera. The video was worse than I thought. The kudzu had grown 6 feet in one night. 6 feet. That was impossible. Even the fastest-growing bamboo in the world only grew 3 feet in a single day, and kudzu wasn't bamboo. But worse than the speed was the purpose. The vines didn't spread randomly. They moved toward the hotel, toward my window, toward me. I needed to find that basement laboratory. I needed to know what Dr. Blackwood had done. The hotel had 3 floors above ground and, according to the old blueprints I'd found online, 1 floor below. I found the basement door behind the kitchen. It was locked, but the wood around the lock was old and rotten. One good kick, and it opened. The stairs going down were covered in dust and something else, something that looked like thin roots, white as bone, spreading across the concrete like veins. I turned on my flashlight and started down. The basement was bigger than I expected. It wasn't just a storage area, it was a real laboratory. Long tables covered with old equipment, shelves full of jars and bottles, filing cabinets, a big metal door at the far end with growth chamber stenciled on it. Everything was covered in those white roots. They came from the walls, the ceiling, the floor. They wrapped around the furniture and equipment like they were trying to hold it all together. Or maybe trying to pull it all apart. I found Dr. Blackwood's journals in a filing cabinet. There were dozens of them, covering almost 20 years of research before the accident. I sat on the dusty floor and started reading. He was brilliant. He'd figured out ways to accelerate plant growth, to make crops resistant to disease and drought, to increase yields by incredible amounts. But he wanted more. He wanted to create a plant that could think, that could adapt, that could solve its own problems. He wanted to merge plant and human consciousness. The early experiments were on animals. Mice, then rabbits, then a dog. He wrote about how they screamed when the roots grew into their brains. How they died. All except one rabbit that lived for 3 days with vines growing out of its eyes. Then he wrote about the thing he found in the dirt, the spores. Ancient spores from a plant that shouldn't exist, that had been waiting in the Tennessee soil for millions of years. He thought they were the key to everything. He thought they would make his experiment work. He was wrong. The last journal entry was simple. I can feel it working. The connection is forming. I can hear the plants. I can feel them growing. And then nothing. Just blank pages. I heard the scraping sound again. Behind me. I spun around, shining my flashlight. The white roots were moving, growing toward me across the floor. Not fast, but steady, like worms crawling through dirt. I ran for the stairs. The roots tried to follow, reaching for my feet. I made it to the basement door and slammed it shut, then pushed a heavy shelf in front of it. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. This wasn't possible. This wasn't real. Plants don't hunt people. Plants don't have intentions or desires or... My laptop was beeping. The sensors outside were going crazy. The electromagnetic pulses had changed. They were faster now, more intense, more complex. I pulled up the translation program I'd been working on, the one that tried to interpret the patterns as language. I'd built it as a joke, really, not expecting it to find anything. But now it was showing words. Actual words. Elena, please. Help. Trapped. Lonely. Need. Connect. I stared at the screen. This couldn't be happening. Plants don't talk. Dead scientists don't communicate through vines. But the words kept coming. 50 years, alone, please, join us, together, forever. My phone rang. I picked it up without thinking. Get out of that hotel, now. It was Moses. I saw the vines moving. He knows who you are. He wants you. Moses, I found his laboratory. I know what you found. I helped him build it. And I saw what he became. He's not human anymore, Dr. Vasquez. He's not even really alive. He's something in between. Something. That shouldn't exist, and he's been alone in the green for 50 years. He wants to talk to someone. He wants to not be alone, and he'll drag you into the vines to do it. How do I stop him? There was a long silence. Then, you can't stop him. You can only run. And you need to run now because... The line went dead. I looked out the window. The kudzu was moving again. All of it. The entire mass of green surrounding the hotel was shifting, crawling, reaching up the walls like a wave of vegetation. I grabbed my laptop and my keys and ran for the front door. It was blocked. Vines had grown across it during the day, thick as my arm, woven together like a basket. I ran to the back door. Same thing. Every window, every door, all covered in green. I was trapped. The laptop beeped again. New message from the sensors. Come to me. Basement. Meet. Talk. Need you. The scraping sound came from every wall at once. The white roots were coming through the cracks in the floor, through the walls, through the ceiling. Growing faster now. reaching for me. I ran upstairs to the second floor, then the third. Maybe I could break a window, climb down somehow. But when I got to the top floor, every window was covered in kudzu so thick I couldn't even see daylight through it. I was in a prison made of plants, and something that used to be human was coming for me. I found him in one of the third-floor rooms, not on purpose. I was just running, trying to find any way out, and I opened a door, and he was there. Not Dr. Blackwood, not anymore, but not the kudzu either. Something in between. He was built into the wall. Vines grew through him, around him, out of him. His skin was gray and papery, like old leaves. His eyes were open but covered in a thin film of green. Roots came out of his mouth, his nose, his ears. His hands were stretched out at his sides, palms up, with thick vines growing through. Off the centers like he'd been crucified on the wall, but he was alive. I could see his chest moving. I could see his eyes tracking me as I stumbled backward. The laptop in my hand beeped. The screen showed new words. Elena. Finally. Someone. To. Talk. To. His mouth didn't move. The words just appeared on my screen, pulled from the electromagnetic signals in the kudzu network. Please, I whispered. Please let me go. Been alone. So long. 50 years. In the green, feeling everything, growing, spreading. But no one to share it with. What happened to you? I asked. Maybe if I kept him talking, I could think of a way out. Wanted to connect humans and plants. Thought it would save the world. Used the ancient spores. They showed me the way. The spores Moses mentioned? Yes, they were waiting in the soil. Older than humans. Older than dinosaurs. From something else. They showed me how to merge consciousness with plants. But something went wrong. Everything went wrong. The spores had their own consciousness, their own hunger. They took me, trapped me, used me as a bridge to grow, to spread, to consume. I looked at his face. Behind the green film over his eyes, I could see tears. Actual tears. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Not your fault, but you can help. Join the network. Be with me. Fight it from inside the spore. Consciousness is growing, stronger, spreading beyond. Greenbrier will consume everything unless we stop it. How do I stop it? Come into the green. Join me. Together we can fight it. Take control of the network. Turn it against the spore entity. And if I don't? The vines around me started moving faster. They wrapped around my ankles, my wrists, not hurting me, not yet, but holding me in place. Then the entity wins, spreads, consumes. Earth, please. Elena, no. Choice, only. Hope. I thought about running. I thought about fighting. But I'm a scientist, and I could see the logic in what he was saying. The kudzu was spreading too fast. It would reach the highway in days, maybe hours. It would spread to other towns, other states. And if there was really an ancient entity controlling it, something with consciousness and purpose. If I do this, I said slowly, will I end up like you, trapped in the wall for 50 years? I will not trap you, I promise. If we win, you go free. If we lose, nothing matters. Anyway, I looked at my laptop screen, at the words appearing there, at the thing that used to be a man begging me to help him. How do I join the network? Come, here, touch, me, the vines will do the rest. I walked forward. Each step felt like walking to my own execution, but I didn't see another choice. If he was telling the truth, this was the only way to stop the entity. If he was lying, well, I'd be dead either way. I reached out and touched his hand. The vines moved fast. They wrapped around my wrists, my arms, my neck. I felt something sharp pierce my skin. Dozens of tiny points like needles pushing into my veins. Then the world exploded into green. I was everywhere at once. I could feel every leaf, every root, every vine in the entire network. Miles of kudzu, all connected, all one organism. And underneath it all, I could feel two consciousnesses fighting for control. Dr. Blackwood was there, weak but still fighting after 50 years. His mind felt tired and sad and desperate. And the other thing, the spore entity. It was huge and alien and hungry. It didn't think in words or images. It thought in growth and consumption and spreading. It had been waiting in the soil for millions of years, waiting for something smart enough to wake it up, to give it a way to spread again. Help me push it back. Blackwood's voice in my head now, not on a screen. I pushed. I imagined the entity as a tumor, as a cancer, and I imagined cutting it out. Blackwood joined me, and together we forced our combined will into the network. The entity fought back. I felt pain in every leaf, every root. The vines around me tightened. In the physical world, I was screaming. But in the network, in the green consciousness, I kept pushing. We were losing. The entity was too strong, too old, too vast. It had infected every part of the kudzu network. Cutting it out would kill everything, including me and Blackwood. Have to burn it out. Blackwood's thought came to me. Have to destroy the network, kill the entity, and us with it. No, I said. Thought screamed. There has to be another way. No other way. Only choice. Do it. Elena. End. This, please. I felt his acceptance, his relief. He'd been trapped for 50 years, and now he could finally die. But he couldn't do it alone. He needed me to make the choice, to push the self-destruct button. In my bag, strapped to my side even as the vines held me, was the herbicide I'd brought. Super concentrated, designed to kill kudzu, if I could reach it, if I could inject it into the network. I focused on my physical body, on moving my hand. The vines were tight, but they weren't meant to hurt me. Blackwood was still in partial control. I moved my fingers, found the zipper on my bag, pulled out the syringe of herbicide. Do it, Blackwood's voice in my head. I plunged the needle into the vine wrapped around my arm. The network screamed. I'd never heard a plant scream before. I didn't know it was possible. But this was a scream, a sound that existed in my head and in the physical world at the same time. The entity thrashed. It tried to escape, to jump to other plants, but Blackwood held it in place, trapped it in the dying network. Go! Elena! Get! Out! Network! Breaking! Down! I felt him push me, and suddenly I was falling backward out of the green consciousness, back into my own body. The vines released me and I collapsed on the floor, gasping. The kudzu around me was turning brown, dying, withering. The network was collapsing. On the wall, Dr. Blackwood's B. Odie was crumbling like old paper. His eyes found mine one last time. "Thank you," he whispered with his real voice, the first words he'd spoken out loud in 50 years. Then he was gone, just dust and dead vines. The kudzu died over the next 3 days. All of it. The entire massive network that had covered Greenbrier just withered and fell away, leaving the town visible again for the first time in 50 years. I spent those 3 days in the hospital in the next town over. The vine punctures in my arms got infected, and I had a fever that wouldn't break. The doctor said I was lucky to be alive. Moses visited me on the second day. He sat by my bed and didn't say anything for a long time. "You did it," he finally said. "He's gone. Really gone. I can feel it. The air feels different. Cleaner." "He saved me," I said. In the end, he held the entity back so I could escape. He'd been fighting it for 50 years, and he never gave up. "That sounds like the man I knew," Moses said quietly, "before the experiment, before the spores. He really did want to save the world. He did save it, just not the way he planned." When I was released from the hospital, I went back to Greenbrier. The town looked naked without all the kudzu. The buildings were damaged. 50 years of plant growth had cracked foundations and torn off roofs, but they were visible, reclaimed. People were coming back. Not many, but some. The ones who'd left decades ago, wanting to see their town again. I collected samples of the dead kudzu and sent them to laboratories around the country. The spores were in there, dormant again, probably waiting for the next person stupid enough to wake them up. I wrote a report. Not the scientific paper I'd planned, but a warning. I documented everything. Blackwood's experiment, the entity, the network. I sent it to every major research institution I could think of. Most of them ignored it. Called it pseudoscience. But a few people believed me. A few people understood that there are things growing in the earth older and stranger than we imagine. I still study. Plants. That's what I do. But now I study them differently. I look for the wrong patterns, the too fast growth, the coordinated behavior that shouldn't exist. And sometimes, late at night, I can still feel it. That connection to the green. Just an echo. Just a whisper. The vines changed me when they connected me to the network. I'm not part of it anymore, but I remember what it felt like to be everything, everywhere, all at once. Sometimes I dream I'm in the kudzu again, feeling it grow. But in my dreams, I'm alone. No Blackwood, no entity, just me and the green silence. I wake up from those dreams and check the news for reports of unusual plant growth. So far, nothing. But I'm watching, always watching. Because Dr. Blackwood taught me something important in those final moments. Consciousness can hide in the most unexpected places. And sometimes, the most dangerous things are the ones that look the most natural. The kudzu is gone from Greenbrier. But those spores are still out there, waiting in soil all over the world, waiting for the next person to dig them up, waiting to grow